Walking bass lines in jazz are a bit intimidating at first. It sounds easy when you listen to it, but when you have to play it, you start to think, wait, where do I start? Where am I supposed to go? What notes can I use? All these notes are supposed to work, but why does my bass line still sound so whack? In this video, I'm going to give you some initial strategies to use to get started on playing through some jazz standards. First of all, the biggest responsibility for the bass in every genre is to mark the root of the harmony that's being played. Everything falls second to that. Harmony is built and perceived from the bottom up. The perception of whatever voicing a pianist or guitarist is playing is still highly dependent on what the bass player ends up playing. If I'm playing a C major triad, but the bass player suddenly plays an A, guess what? The culmination of both of those being played together makes it sound like an A minor 7. Why? Well, it's because our ears are hearing the relationships of all the intervals in that C major triad, but within the context of the A note in the bass being at the bottom. We now hear C as a minor third, the E as a fifth, and the G as a minor seventh. When you're playing a walking bass line, you want to mark the root of the harmony first. Great, but what about the other notes? Well, the other notes that you use have to outline other key aspects of the harmony, like the third or seventh. These two intervals give the listener enough info to hear whether you are playing a major, minor, or dominant chord. You can look at it like this. The piano or guitar get to play multiple notes at the same time in the form of a chord, giving us everything we need to identify what chord quality is happening at that moment, while the bass player is essentially doing the same thing, but just one note at a time. On top of that, because the bass is walking in quarter notes, it's also adding rhythmic momentum to help push the song forward from the low end. Walking bass lines can get really complex and sophisticated in such a beautiful way, but let me show you a few angles to approach it at first, just so you can get through a standard in an interesting enough way while still fulfilling your role. We're going to accomplish this by starting with a one-bar phrase. This will work well with a ton of standards that have a chord per bar. You only have 4 beats to outline the harmonies, so you got to make them count. The first phrase goes root, second, third, back to the root. Depending on the quality of the chord, your third will be either major or minor, so pay attention to what you need to do. The next phrase goes root, second, third, then fifth. Again, pay attention to the chord quality to play the right third. Now, outlining the harmony by going up isn't the only direction available to us, so let's switch it up and do a phrase that moves down. Let's start with an octave, going down to the 7th, then the 6th, then the 5th. Depending on the chord quality, you'll have either a major or minor 7th, so keep an eye out for that. Another option would be to play a dropped third approach, like the octave, then down to the major third, fourth, then fifth. This time we only have to worry about the third being a major or minor depending on the chord quality. If you're finding this video helpful and want to dive deeper into piano, guitar, bass, music theory, and composing, go ahead and give this video a like and then hit that subscribe button and notification bell to get notified about more music content dropping every week. Thanks. All right, cool. We got a bunch of one-bar phrases figured out, but what if we have to walk on a chord that lasts for 2 bars? Easy. Just combine 2 of these phrases in a row. The only thing I would suggest is to switch between playing on the low root or higher octave options at the start of the second bar like this. Now that we have all these phrases figured out, let's apply them to a song. Now, could we have just played the chord tones of all the chords one note at a time? Sure, but it wouldn't sound very appealing. Also, one lovely characteristic of walking bass lines is that there's a lot of linear motion in the line, meaning it's moving in a set direction in a stepwise fashion. That linear motion is really appealing to the ear and keeps everything smooth. To me, if I can play at least 3 notes in a row that are just a step from each other in a single direction before I jump an interval, then it really smooths the line out a lot. Just playing chord tone arpeggios as a bass line is going to sound a bit stiff and boring, honestly. Now, these phrases are just the start of what you can do. I'll be following up this video with more complex ways to approach walking bass lines, so be sure to come back for that. In the meantime, take the phrases we worked on here for a spin on another tune yourself, and let me know in the comments how well the strategy worked out for you. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.